Okay, good morning everybody. Time is 8:30, so we're trying to get started. Today we have the big pleasure of having Forsmark and Johan Böhlin here from Public Transport Administration in Region Stockholm to talk about the transition to electric buses in the public transport system of Stockholm. So we're really much looking forward to that seminar and having you here. Before we get started, just some information. I'm Albin here from Integrated Transport Research Lab. I think we have some people who haven't been here before. So for you we have toilets downstairs and exits up here and also downstairs. And also I want to just take the opportunity to briefly mention our upcoming conference here at ITRL at the 13th and 14th of June here at KTH, which is our conference on integrated transport research, which I think might be interesting for many of you. So if you're interested, talk to anyone from ITRL here, or also look on our webpage. You can find more information about that. And also, I just want to quickly mention our upcoming seminars. So we have had 4 weeks now of a very intense seminar period. We're going to take some rest, and then on 14th of May, we're going to present a research project that's been done here at ITRL about future scenarios for digitalization of the freight transport sector. Might be interesting for some of you. And then the 28th of May, our researcher Rami Darwish here from ITRL will talk about business model innovation and disruptive innovations for the transport sector. You can find all of that at our webpage at ITRL. So I will leave over to Anna. She will present 30 to 40 minutes, and then after that we will have time for some questions and discussion. Very welcome, Anna.
Thank you. So I'm very glad to be here today. I work as a project manager at the Stockholm region traffic department, and we have carried out a study about electric buses in Stockholm, in the Stockholm region, in a system perspective. So I will talk about that. And I have my co-op here today, Johan Böhlin, who is eating a sandwich. Maybe you can say hello right now. So we have been working very closely together. We also have Maria Cilia here, I think, there. And you have been working with us as a consultant.
A pleasure.
A pleasure, yes, for us too. So maybe Johan and Maria will step in and help me answer some of your questions. How many of you speak Swedish? Oh, good. A few. So this is actually the second time I talk about this topic in English, so it will be some kind of Swinglish, I think. And maybe you have to help me with some words, but we fixed that together. Yeah, I will talk about how the Stockholm region can take the next sustainability step. We all already have renewable fuels in our bus system, and we want to see now a smart transition to electric and more energy efficient system. I will talk about why electric buses are relevant to achieve goals, and where can the electric buses run as we see it today, and the strategy as we see as a cooperation process together with the ones who drive the buses in our traffic, the operators. Okay, just some short facts. A bit more than 800 people step into a vehicle in the public transport in Stockholm every day. So we have bus, metro, light rail, trams and ferries in our system. You can see the region here. We have 2,200 buses running, 11 contracts. A few of them Nobina has. And we cooperate with 26 municipalities. And as I said, 100% of the bus fleet runs on renewable fuels already, so this is to take the next step. We have biodiesel, biogas and ethanol in the system. We have invested a lot of money in infrastructure for biogas in recent years, so we have a few almost new depots with biogas infrastructure. So that is a part of this puzzle to see how the biogas can fit well together with the electric transition. I already said this, we see it as the next step in the sustainability work, and we can see that the electric buses have influenced on many of these goals. Now these are in Swedish but many of you understand, that's good. But we have many goals concerning how we can have more passengers, how we can have a smart public transport system, how we can build an attractive region together with the municipalities and other stakeholders. And we have this cake, I'll say, tårta in Swedish. This is how we use the renewable fuels today, and we see, of course, that we will have soon a part of this cake as the electricity part. Today we have 5 electric buses in Norrtälje, so you can't really see them here.
And 3 in Barkarby.
And 3 in Barkarby, but the
Small
small ones, they are not really possible to see. But soon we'll have a few more in Barkarby as well. So this will change. We have worked really hard for 2 years, I would say, Johan, Maria and I and many more people. So in February we had a decision in the traffic board. And the decision includes a strategy of how we shall work to get more electric buses in the system. And the decision supports an increased number of electric buses in the Stockholm region. We don't have a goal of how many % or how many buses, but the politicians are really keen on increasing this number. We have described how we'll have to adopt our organization. We have to write new procurement demands and new guidelines. And Johan is testing this already now, since we are procuring 4 new contracts. So a lot of the work we have done have we already started to use the new knowledge. What we have said in the study, the feasibility study, is that new investment in infrastructure will primarily be allocated to depots. And this is, we have focused on the inner city and Lidingö. This is one of our 11 contracts. I will get back to that. And this strategy, we think in the feasibility study, will give us the best opportunity to reduce risks and keep the costs low. So this is just a recommendation. This might be a bit different when we next time we tender this contract. Something else might be relevant, but this is what we can see right now. Yeah, we had the decision in the traffic board, and the politicians were quite happy. I don't know if you've read the newspapers. They were out speaking a lot. So this is Kristoffer Karlssons, and this is Thomas Eriksson. He's from Moderaterna and he's from the Green Party, Miljöpartiet. And they talked about how many buses we will have and when they will start run, and it will be fantastic in the Stockholm region when all the electric buses come in Barkarby. And we will have the largest elbusssatsning, the largest investment in Sweden, they said. So this was a lot of fun. We talked to the politicians and said, we'll do this quite slowly, we'll take care of our money, we will not lead this development. But they think that this is what we're going to do. So we have a lot of political force with us when we work with this issue, I would say. The different techniques that we have studied in this feasibility study are depot charging. So this is one of the buses from Norrtälje. They charge in the depot at night. And we have studied opportunity charging at end stations. This is actually a picture that we made close to our office at Lindhagensgatan. So here we have made a picture to show primarily to municipalities how this could work if we would like to put end station charging in the city or in the region. We will have to build some charging infrastructure. Here you can see. And this is an electricity box or house. And actually in this picture we have taken parking places to put up this infrastructure. So this is also a thing that we have to discuss. If we want to have this, we also have to use the surface in the city for these things instead of other things that we might want to have. In motion charging, this is also a picture that we have made. Today this is a bicycling and walking path and parking places over here. So we put like bus rapid transit bus lines here, and we put up the trolley bus infrastructure above. And this is to show the trunk lines, the blue buses that you see in the city, how they could charge if going electric today. And this is also to show that we need to have also these electricity houses somewhere.
You have the wires just for some of the station.
Exactly. What we counted on is to put this infrastructure above 40% of the trunk lines roads or distances, and then we could make them all electric. So this is called in motion charging, and these buses then have batteries as the other ones, but they don't have to stand still while charging. They can run and charge on the same time.
And quite small also. Small batteries.
Yeah, exactly. So this is actually a really good alternative, but then we need to have a lot of discussions with the municipalities of where to put the infrastructure up. So this is a quite Swinglish part, I would say. We have a lot of goals, as I showed you in the beginning. We work with what we call effektmål, effect goals. And what goals can electric buses help us to achieve? The first part. And we have taken a few of them and focused on them. And they are increased energy efficiency. We can contribute to attractive cities and reduce negative impact on people's health and living conditions. And we see that we can increase market share for public transport and the amount of satisfied travelers. We know that many passengers really enjoy traveling with the quiet buses, and also the bus drivers enjoy this. So it's a modern bus, and it's a nice bus to travel in. In the feasibility studies, we have put up some system goals, and they show us how the system shall be designed or how it shall not be designed, actually. So for us it's important to keep the same robustness as conventional bus traffic. It's not okay to put an electric bus and make the travelers have a longer journey, or a journey with more where they have to switch between different buses. So it should be as good or preferably better than today. We know that the Stockholm region grows a lot. We have a lot of new passengers coming into our system, so we have to make this development of the traffic possible. We have to make it possible to have increased amount of travelers and also longer vehicles to support this. We look into the social environmental sustainability, and we can see that we have a lot of local gains if we move over to electric vehicles. We can contribute to this, but we also see that we can have external negative consequences somewhere else, and that's primarily where we have the mining for the batteries. So in Congo and China, for example, we have problems with environmental issues and social issues, child labor, for example. So when we write procurement demands, with this Johan's work right now, we have to try to write them so that the batteries that we put in the vehicles are good batteries, not just for us, but for everyone. And we have focused a lot of cost-efficient solutions, and that is where the cooperation process comes into the picture. We see that together with the operators we can do a lot, together with the municipalities, to keep the costs and the risks low for the public transport system. So we have a lot of consequences to calculate on and to describe. And what consequences in relation to our goals can we measure and describe? So in the study we have described a lot of these consequences. Some of them we can count on, and some we can just describe. And this is how we also ended up with all these in recommendation to the politicians.
You want questions later or now?
I think, what do you think?
It's up to you, but
Yeah, you can ask now.
Why is the goal for energy efficiency so low? 15% better. Better than what?
Maybe Johan can answer that one. It's a political
which goal?
The first one, energy efficiency.
Okay, 50%. That is to 2021 we have a goal on 10% and 50% to 2030.
But compared with what?
Compared with 2011 level.
With hydrogen buses or with what type
It's
of?
not just for the buses, it's for the whole system.
Yeah.
So it includes tunnelbana, fast
This is for the whole system.
And the bus fleet we have,
Not mentioned there.
No.
the bus fleet we have in the 2011. The
Okay.
whole bus fleet, and the ambulances.
I got the answer.
Okay.
So we have tried to look upon this with the system analysis. We should put plan here in the beginning. So we look upon the whole process from planning an electric system to operating and to, in the end, dismantling the infrastructure and the buses and the batteries and everything. So this is the process over time or over years. And we also look upon the processes of what actor have to do what to make this work. So the traffic department is doing the procurement of traffic. That is what we are doing right now with 4 big contracts. Then the operator has to buy the vehicles. Then the infrastructure planning, permits for building something. That is what we do, and also together with the operators and the municipalities. And the energy supply, this is a dialogue that we have to have at an early stage to make sure that at every place where we want to charge buses we have enough electricity. And as you might have read, there is lack of electricity in the future in many parts of Sweden. In Uppsala it's a large problem right now, and we see in some places in Stockholm as well. So we have to make sure that we have the electricity in the future that we need. When we look at stakeholders, we see many of them here in this picture. We have the possibility to do what we want, if I say so. We have rådighet. How do I say that in English?
jurisdiction.
We have jurisdiction over our depots. So here we can build and change things as we like. We can make sure that we procure traffic with some special kinds of buses and the infrastructure here at the depots. This is what we can kind of have jurisdiction of. And then we have a lot of other stakeholders around the system that we have to have dialogue with, that we have to understand the needs and the wishes for these actors. So this feasibility study that we have made is in a very broad perspective. It will not give exact answers of how we should do in a special place, but this is more of understanding how we shall do this and what kind of effects it might have in the future, and risks and costs and all this. So we have looked into the potential of running electric buses in the whole county. As I said, we have 11 contracts, as you see here, and right now we can see that currently that only city buses, which are called class 1, can be procured as electric buses. This is what the market have today. This might change. It has probably already changed since we wrote this. But this is the largest potential as we see it. So the most densely built up areas have the largest potential for electrification. And this is also where we can see the best or largest benefits of electrification. So the potential with today's technique is what we have said in the study, seen in the studies, around 690 electric buses in 2030. This is, of course, this will change. This is what we can count on right now. And this would make 32% of the bus fleet electric. And this is a little bit less than the class 1 vehicles that we have today. So one of the things that we say is that we're sure that this will not be true in a couple of years or maybe in a couple of months, So we now know how to count on this, and we now know how to develop the methods for the future so that we can make this even better. So this is actually the first time we have done a study on electric vehicles. The green circles that you see is where we have the densely built up areas, and this is where we see we have large potentials for electrifications. So we already have 5 electric buses in Norrtälje. We will have 5 electric buses in Sigtuna in the summer. And in Järfälla, Barkarby, we have a letter of intent with the Nobina and Järfälla, the municipality, to put buses there while they are building the Barkarby city and waiting for the metro to arrive. And we have a lot, as I said, we have 4 different contracts to be procured right now with the new operator running in 2021. And we see potential here to put electric vehicles in here, but we don't know yet how many it might be. But we think we might have electric buses in here as well. Okay. Do you understand what I say? Is it clear enough? Good.
I'm questioning a little
Yeah.
the laddhybrider that already exist in the inner city. You don't run them as laddhybrid, do you?
Yes,
They
Keolis
are in-
run not the laddhybrid, no, the hybrids we have. The
The
laddhybrids we don't have
the
anymore.
laddhybrids is in Gothenburg now.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
They were too short. We had so many passengers and the buses were only 12 meters, so we needed 18 meters long buses at that place. So they have dismantled.
Because it was a little contrary to your plans that you didn't even run the ones you had.
That was
For a
a
while.
EU project that we tried, so that was a pilot.
Yeah, you can say a lot of things, but you didn't run them.
Yes, we ran them during the project.
Yeah.
Sorry,
But then-
for
if
some
we
reason
could,
you
sorry,
stopped.
if we could save the main questions for the question session afterwards, because we're live streaming the
Oh,
the
sorry.
presentation, so I'll be a little bit more efficient. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Good, we keep the questions. Stockholm Inner City and Lidingö is one of the contracts that we have, and the main focus in the study was this contract. So this is the Stockholm Inner City, and this is the Lidingö Island. And what you see, the blue ones here are the trunk lines, and the red ones are the other buses, the red buses that you see in the city. So this is how they run in the contract. So what we did in the study to make it possible for the politicians to understand, if they invest in infrastructure in the region, how far can we get? How many electric buses can we get in the inner city? So these we made 3 different scenarios: base, middle, high, and within this we have 5 different options with different different sorts of infrastructure. The 3 different techniques that I showed you in the beginning: depot charge, end station charge, and in motion charge. So the base scenario, lines that don't need more vehicles. We know that electric vehicles need to go back and charge. It might be a little bit more inefficient, but we don't have so much space in the depot so that we can have more buses without having more traffic. So this line down here is interesting because with this base scenario, we see that we can electrify 40% of the buses without needing more vehicles. In the middle one scenario, we have more depot charge. This is only depot charging. Here we have even more depot charging, and it gives us plus 6% vehicles, which we know we can't fit in our depots. So that is not a good scenario. We know it's also difficult to expand our depots because it's difficult for us to get land from the municipalities. In the middle two, this middle scenario, we get more or less 60% of the bus fleet electric in the inner city. Here we build 12 charging places in the inner city. And this is a good scenario if we want to reach 60% electric buses. We just get 2% extra vehicles, but we need to build all these 12 charging stations, which we know from our pilots that we made. It is quite difficult to build charging infrastructure in the inner city because it's very dense. We don't have much space. In the high scenario, we electrify all bus traffic in the inner city and Lidingö. In the first scenario, we have depot charging and trolley bus infrastructure. We built 15 kilometers of that. Then we have actually 10% extra vehicles. And then we combine all three techniques. And we get 12 plus 15 charging infrastructure charging stations, 15 kilometers of trolley bus infrastructure, and the rest with depot charging. And from risk perspective, this one is complicated since we have not done this yet anywhere in Stockholm County. We know that we have to develop, we have to learn, we have to adapt our organization to be able to build this and still make it possible to reach our goal. I talked about robustness, for example. If we would do this, we would put the bus system, we think, into a big risk that we cannot give the passengers as good traffic as today, and even better. Effects on emissions. As I said, we have already renewable fuels in the bus fleet. So actually I don't know the English words for this. Particulate matter maybe? And kväve?
We say NOx.
NOx? You say
Nitrogen
NOx.
oxides, but no one says nitrogen oxides.
Yeah.
Basic NOx.
And CO2. So we can see that we can lower the emissions if we go from renewable fuels to electric. But note that it's from already low levels. We have Euro 6 engines in the inner city, and we have already renewable fuels. So we can see that the largest environmental benefits come from giving other sectors access to the biofuels. We use a lot of biofuels in the traffic. We can also see that we already reach goals regarding emissions and CO2 without electric buses. So the electric buses will give us possibilities to reach our other goals. If we make all the buses that you saw on this picture with the green circles, if we make them electric, we will reduce around 20%, reducing 20% until 2030. Make it 20% more energy efficient. And about noise, we have large effects, but it's also depending a lot of the surrounding traffic. So if we put some electric buses in the street with a lot of normal buses or vehicles, you will not really see the difference. But if we have a lot of buses and not so many other vehicles, we will have a large effect. Should we keep the questions until afterwards? Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it okay?
Question is how big share was it with electric buses in this base scenario?
This is for the whole
30%
picture.
in the
Yeah.
inner city.
Yeah.
Not the rest.
So, the procurement of electric buses. This is our procurement process, and I wanted to show the different phases that we have to go through. I can do like this, because we are procuring 4 different contracts right now. We are in this process that we are making the procurement documents. We are going to send them out to the market to test them, you can say, now in April, and in September we will might have to change something if it's not clear enough, and then we send them out for real. And then the operators, Nobina and the others, will have a few months to answer, and then we evaluate, and then more or less a year before the traffic will start in 2021, we have to choose which operator get the contract. And then they have this year to buy their vehicles to fit into the system. So it's a lot of actors that have to do their thing in a good time. So if we need to build charging infrastructure, for example, the charging infrastructure must be here to be able to preferably have a test before the contract starts, a special date in June or August or April. And this here is new for us, since we have not really done this before. If it's a matter of many electric buses in a depot, we really have to make sure at an early stage that we have enough electricity so that the operators can count on how many electric buses and how much it would cost and what risks it would give us. So we have to do this really properly, not to put the bus system in a big risk. Okay, a system perspective, I said it quite a few times. This is just to show how we try to divide the public transport system into different levels. So on the upper level we have the public transport. Here we have the different trafikslag, modes of traffic. So the bus traffic is here. On level 3 we have, for example, roads, terminals, depots. Here we have to look into our different parts that have to function and to be well prepared if they're going to be electric. And on the lower level we might think that this is not so important to achieve goals on this level. But we can see that, for example, the battery is really important to make the public transport and the bus traffic work. If the batteries, for example, don't work, we might have problems up here. And you might have heard about the escalators in the system. Yeah, this is the part that doesn't work in the escalator. So actually, when this part don't work in the escalator, we cannot achieve goals on this level. And the battery in the bus traffic, I would say, has the same potential as this part of the escalator. If the battery doesn't work in the bus, we might have problems to reach the goals in the regional development plan and the regional transport plan. So some of these small parts are really important to achieve goals on the upper level. So today we're 2.2 million inhabitants in the region. In this regional development plan for Stockholm 2050, we see that it might be around 3.4 million. So we see that the transportation needs must support good local environment and limit emissions of greenhouse gases. So we have to do this in a really smart way to be able to build houses, build infrastructure, and make everything fit together to support this 2050 perspective, where we're also going to be a climate neutral region. So this is what we see. We have to make this work. All these goals that we have to achieve them. We also have goals on an upper level. This is the regional transport plan and this is the regional development plan. And this is important that all of these go together. Okay, I'm almost done now. General recommendations from our study is that we have to develop goals, internal goals, and goals together with municipalities, for example, for electric and zero emission operation. We have to do this together. We also have to cooperate with other stakeholders, for example, in the electricity and the energy market. Before each tendering, we have to analyze the opportunities and take strategic decisions early in this phase. These decisions are quite difficult to take, so we can see that we try to sometimes take them too late in the process. We have to be quite brave and take them early. We want to encourage initiatives in ongoing contracts, as Barkarby and Norrtälje, for example. We see that the contracts are 10 years long, so we have to be able to do the transition within a contract as well as when we tender the contract. When we build new, for example, depots and terminals, we have to prepare for electric buses. And since we don't have updated policies yet, we start projects without having the electric buses in the demands that we put on these objects. So now we have some time where we have to kind of look upon the terminals and the depots that we are planning right now and see, can we do something here? When we start something in the future, we probably have adopted policies and guidelines to be able to support the electric bus system. And we have to extend the requirement that we write when we procure new contracts. For example, to include battery production, traceability of minerals, and recycling and reuse of old batteries. So this is general recommendations. And then we have a proposed strategy for the inner city, which is the base scenario that I talked about. We think that we should start with this. 40% of the bus fleet might get electric this way, as we see it. And then we have to invest in our depots, primarily. It's also good to have strategic charging infrastructure somewhere in the city to be able to charge extra, but we don't think that we should get into a system where we build charging infrastructure at every end station. Especially in the inner city, it's very densely built up, and we know, since we had 2 pilots already, that it is difficult to build the charging infrastructure at end stations. So we think that we should not put this in the inner city. We think we should have other solutions. Outside the city, it might be working better with the end station charging. And we think that we should work closely together with the stakeholders, the operators, the municipalities, and write letter of intent, as we have done in Barkarby, for example, so that we can create good conditions for electric buses. And if we do this, we will also create good conditions for all buses, of course. So this includes that the municipalities have to give us strategic depot localization. They want to put our depots far outside the city so they can build houses instead. But we need to have a good strategic central localization. We need to have passable roads. We don't want the buses to stand in lines just waiting with passengers that think that maybe I have to take my car instead because the bus is so slow. That is not good if we want to achieve goals on the high level. We want bus priority, bus lines, all these things that can give us give the public transport higher attractiveness. And then we will also have better conditions for electric buses. Yeah, that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. So we have plenty of time for questions, and it feels like we have a lot of questions in the room, so that's very nice. I was thinking Johan and Maria maybe also want to get up if you answer some of the questions, maybe. Maria, yeah, you can. But also, what could be good is if you could repeat the question in the microphone, so that also the people watching on the live stream can follow.
Come, Johan.
Yeah, welcome everyone. And I will also pass around this attendance list now during the question session. So yes, so feel free to ask questions and discuss.
Kom och stå här, Johan, för då hörs det inte den här.
Yes.
Ja.
You mentioned that you also have to do organizational changes. What does that mean? What kind of changes do you have to make in your own organization for e-buses?
The question was what kind of organization we have to change, and we're looking upon that question right now. We see that we have a lot of questions that have to be answered, but yet we don't have a special person that is responsible for electric buses. So we think that we might have some kind of strategic person working with the infrastructure, the energy demands, the electricity questions. We have that kind of person for the railway system, and we think that we might need to have that for the electric bus system as well. But it's a matter of competence within the staff organization, and also within the documents that you have that lead us in a special way. We need to make all the policies adopted to this new technique. Yeah.
I think in this strategy slide, it seemed that the opportunity charging or charging during operations is ruled out, or not the core. What's the specific reason?
Yeah, the question is, I would say, why we have chosen the base scenario instead of the middle or high. And that when we looked upon all the consequences that we saw, we saw that costs and risks were lower with the base scenario, and we also think that if we start with the base scenario, which is adopting our depots, changing our organization, our guidelines and all that, we will be better prepared if we want to go into the 100% or 60% level. So that is, I would say, a matter of being a little bit slow started and not go all the way too fast. We also see that the technique is developing very fast, so we don't really know in 10 years' time what will be the answer to the CO2 question or to other questions that we have to address. And also we have the biogas infrastructure that we already invested in, and we want to continue using that. So we see a mix of renewable fuels in the system in the future.
Yes.
Do you have something else to say?
No, you say it very well.
No? Good. Was that enough answer? Yeah? Yeah.
Thank you for a nice presentation.
Thank you.
I have two questions. One, is this report public?
Yep.
On your website?
Yep.
And the second one is, do you think this work will also be a good help if you want to electrify like the ferries or other parts of the public transport?
That is a good question. I don't know much about ferries, but of course we can use a lot of the knowledge about batteries and the energy system. How does it work? Who have to talk to who? How can we procure this?
About the procurement process.
Yeah, I think we could use this in different processes as well.
About ferries, we look at the electric technique in the Stockholm inside ferries, pendle.
The commuter.
Yes, the commuter ferries, but not the archipelago ferries. There we look more of alternative fuels and maybe hybrid solutions.
I want to say something that I forgot to say in the beginning. We studied fully electric buses only, but we know that, for example, hybrids will be a good tool to use to reach the same kind of goals. For example, noise and energy efficiency. But we have decided to put just the fully electric buses in this feasibility study. Yeah.
How in depth did you analyze the energy grid capacity for the depots with the net owners?
Well, the question was how we analyzed the grid in the larger perspective. Would you like to answer that, because you know a lot more about the here. A lot of we have looked up on this, but here is the expert.
On the grid, we had a dialogue with the grid owners, and we went through some of the preliminary results, checking with them. Of course, the answers we received were not official. There is no guarantee on the effects that we asked during the whole study, but there were some indications of what is possible and what is not, essentially. And this is an ongoing process, and of course that needs to be automated in some way. Like the process needs to be a uniform process for all questions that come, and not look into individual locations on and on again, because it puts a lot of burden both to Trafikförvaltningen and also the grid operators. So a strategic dialogue with them continuing to implement would be a very good idea.
Have you talked about the aspect that the depot charge buses only charge at nighttime when the grid actually have a lot of capacity?
Yes, but there are still physical limitations to the capacity. At this moment there is not a big issue, but if we discuss about very large shares it will be an issue. So we do have an indication of how much room we have till you need to act. And then you also have the now I don't know the word in English though. Enforcements, the försäkringen on the net, which will happen by around 26 eller 27. So as long as we implement gradually, in the end you're gonna go along with the grid upgrades, and I don't think it should be a very big issue in the future.
Erik, du kan stanna.
You mentioned that the large effect on CO2, for example, is actually if like the current like biogas is used by other modes instead of buses. Have you looked into this potential, or are there other Are there other sectors that actually want this biofuel, for example?
The question was if we looked upon the potentials, if we can give other sectors the biofuels. Would you like to answer?
Yes.
Or?
We have done a very easy study of that, and the whole bus fleet's volume of renewable fuels is like vad heter motsvarande?
Inrikesflyget.
Equivalent that Swedish in inrikes domestic flights, including the military flights and the private flights. 33% of all the flights we can serve with renewable fuels.
And it's possible to develop fuel for airplanes instead of...
No, you have the råvara, the raw material for renewable fuels. You can do flight fuel instead.
That is just an example of how much fuel we use in the SL.
But biodiesel, HVO, it's very close to flight fuel, so that you can make flight fuel instead. Okay.
Yes.
I've been very interested in electric buses for many years, but I've been told that we shouldn't do like that. We should put demands instead. How much emissions do we accept and so on. Now I have some questions in that direction. You have demands on noise, because some electric buses are noisy, some electric buses are jerky, more jerky than the motor buses, because they don't have that soft gearbox. And there is also another question. The researchers say that we have about 10 years to switch our system CO2. If we run on biogas produced in Stockholm, we do it today. We change the word today. If we produce electric buses and batteries, it will take a while, and it will take some years before we have a plus. First year we have a minus, more CO2 when we produce all these batteries. It's the same with biodiesel. For the first years we cut the trees and we emit more CO2. So for the 10 years maybe the biogas buses are the best solution.
Can I just repeat your question here? It was one question about the demands, how we can put the demands, for example, in noise when we procure. And there was one if it's not a quicker way to reduce greenhouse gases when if building or extending the biogas system. Yeah. Do you want to say something about noise?
Yes, we didn't have noise demands today because my colleagues, noise colleagues, said that we haven't yet strictly good mätmetoder.
We can't measure good enough.
We can't measure good enough to set an exactly level on the noise. So we haven't that yet, but maybe it's coming.
I'm thinking of both inner and outer noise. The railway group know that tonal noise is worse than dark noise, and the electric buses have tonal noise.
What's that mean? The tonal noise.
De har till exempel en inverter som låter med en viss frekvens.
Okej.
Om elektriska fordon. Vissa. Inte de bästa.
Nej.
We have written a lot about noise in the not in the report but in one of the PM's documents reports, which you can find also, and there you can read more about how we have handled the noise question, But we think this is something we have to work with internally in the traffic department, how to use this as a tool, but we're not there yet, I would say. And the other question was about why should we do the quick fix for the fossil fuel is the biogas, not the electricity.
And not the biodiesel.
No.
Our long strategy is to put all the eggs in many baskets to minska sårbarheten, reduce risks and have robustness in the bus fleet.
I have another question related to the electricity grid and power problems that we see in some areas of the Stockholm grid. This may be a bit too far in the future, but have you considered also that using the storage and flexibility capacity in the bus batteries also to serve the electricity grid while not driving and not charging, what you call vehicle to grid with, that you see with private cars? Is this also something that's discussed with electric buses?
We didn't look into that for this. We didn't look into that for this study and investigation, but it is of course one of the most interesting aspects. I don't think at this point we have the regulatory frameworks to do it, unfortunately. But you can think of all of the buses. If a cell has a big amount of buses all together that can act as storage, it can be a very good balancer for the grids, and not depending on individual users and their habits. It can be scheduled, so it's a very good opportunity, I would say.
Can I make a comment on the question? From the operator side, I would say that...
Do you want to stand here?
Yeah, sure.
Everybody can stand
Yeah.
here.
I would say that the charging speed is limiting our possibility to utilize the buses mostly efficiently. That means that we won't have buses standing fully charged at the depot, not in production. Exactly. In that case, we will have a cheaper charger and charge over a longer time, unless it's not out in production serving customers. So I don't think it's gonna be. We won't see it with buses.
Maybe it's a larger potential for cars that are not used so much as a bus is. Yes.
For me, I think that the battery itself is quite a large uncertainty. How do you foresee to procure that? I mean, you will procure your transport to transport operators like Nabina and others, but how can you guarantee that the batteries that deliver are the best batteries and that they will function well during the whole life cycle of the bus, or the longer life cycle, and how does it affect how many times you charge and stuff like that? To me, it sounds quite uncertain for the future.
Yeah, the question was about the batteries and the uncertainties for the future. I try to answer that one. Since we procured the traffic and the operators buy buses and batteries, we have decided that we put demands on batteries, and as I said, the recycle and the process to make the batteries. And then we have counted in the study on that the operators have to change the batteries one time during the contract period. This might not be the case. We don't really know about the future. So I would say that maybe we are more interested in how the environmental aspects of the batteries and give the operators the responsibility to take care of other aspects of the battery. Is that a correct way to?
Yes.
Do you want to comment, Maria?
I mean,
Come.
Stay here.
When the operator purchases the bus, they get a guarantee, and it's usually about 3 to 5 years, depending on the manufacturer. So then they are obliged, if something happens before the guarantee ends, to replace that battery for free, the manufacturer. So on that perspective, the lifetime is guaranteed. As Anna said, it should be changed during a 10-year period of contract, so you should count for a replacement for sure. And then you can focus, as said, to probably procuring specific types of batteries, or batteries that have environmental and social certifications. Maybe that could be a more interesting aspect for from the perspective of the transport administration. But maybe the operator knows more on the battery guarantees and how much you get with those.
I'd say that the guarantees are. The guarantees are, as you say, about 3 to 5 years, and we're trying to get even longer. But they are quite well proven, the batteries we use today in the buses, the lithium batteries. They have been running for quite many years, and we haven't seen any big shifts in the technology yet. We feel quite certain about how well they function, and we have other kind of tools in the contract that make sure we take responsibility for the production. We get quite big fines if we don't produce the traffic we're obliged to produce, and if the customers get unhappy, we also get fines. And so we have quite strong tools that makes us take care of questions like how sure we can be about production, and also about noise levels and questions like that will not be so pleasant for passengers.
Another thing about the batteries is that what has been observed in the past is that sometimes it was not taken into account that we operate in colder temperatures than the mainland Europe, and most of the batteries are dimensioned for this kind of, maybe the weather in southern Germany or something, while here we have colder days. I think that this has been improved in the past few years, and the batteries are coming with more tailor-made solutions for the Nordic weather, but it should always be taken into account. And there are types of batteries that work better in colder weather than others, so it's good to have in mind when shopping.
Yes.
It said that China learned from European technology. Can we learn from their thousands of electric buses in service already? Have we been there and got any experiences?
The question was if we can learn from China, and I would say yes. Everyone can learn from everyone. We have not been there. We have a lot of Chinese buses in Sweden, so in that way I would say we have an experience of the Chinese function. I think one of the big questions in Sweden is, for example, that the driver is an expensive part of the bus system. So we have to be sure we use the driver in efficient way. In China, the driver, this is what I heard at least, a driver is less expensive. The salary is less expensive. So for them, it's not a big issue if the bus system is inefficient. In Stockholm, we have a really efficient system, and we have said that we want to stay with this efficiency. Was that a answer? Do you want to say something about China?
Yeah, they have a lot of. I just agree what you said, that they have a lot of electric buses, but as you say, in the rest of the world, the driver cost is so much smaller proportion of the total cost. So we optimize our traffic in a completely different way than they do in China. As you say, there the investment in the bus, as long as they don't have government subsidies, is the biggest cost. So if you have the bus is almost for free and the driver is almost for free, then they see the kind of differently on operations.
Yeah, I think it's very important to say that in China the subsidies for the buses have been enormous for quite a long time. They are now cutting down, but this made the whole China boom, I think.
They make 1,000 buses per day per year.
Yeah, they have a production volume.
Today, 900 per day.
Yeah, they do, obviously they do, but still it's subsidized as a market, and the economies are different scales in Sweden, so it's expected that where the buses are produced are going to be used like they are.
Good. I think we'll have to let that be the end comment for today. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Johan, who had to leave. Thank you, Maria, for answering questions, and thank you all for coming. It was a very interesting seminar, I think, and don't forget that there are more upcoming. So if you want to be engaged here, please also join for these ones. And there are some extra sandwiches and coffee, and feel free to mingle around here for some more time.
Vi kan ge ut någonting efteråt. Jag tänkte i sådana fall skulle länken till rapporten